Hello everybody, DandyAss here, and welcome back to the Beginner's Guide to FILMORA. Today we'll be discussing music and sound. First, notice the music tab located right over here. As you can see, its layout is very similar to the media tab, as you may remember from the previous video. There is one small difference, however, that I do want to draw a note to. You can add sound files to your music library in the same way you can add video to your media library. However, to do that is a little bit different. For the media, all you had to do was select import from up above, and then import media files. On the music tab, each tab will have an area where it says import music as your last file. This is relatively easy to find if you have a short collection and it's at the very bottom, but if you have a long list, it may take you a while to scroll down to the bottom to find that import music button. The only file here that looks the same as it does over in media is the My Music tab, which has the import button up top. Also, just like with the media tab, if you hover over the icon of any music score that you want to listen to and then click on it, you can listen to a preview in the corner. Nifty, right? Adding music to your timeline is very similar to adding video to it. You can either click the plus button that's on the file itself, and it'll add it over here, or you can simply click and drag it down. Either way works just fine. However, one thing to go ahead and note a little bit early on is that you may have noticed that when I grabbed this file from up above, here, let me bring this back down this way, you may have noticed I was given two choices. I could drop the music file here, or here. The way that the sound works in FILMORA allows you to manipulate multiple tracks at once that can be playing simultaneously. This can be really good for music mixing as well as editing sound effects to get certain effects. But I'll explain more about tracks later on in this video. As with the video section, FILMORA comes with a lot of pre-made music samples that you can add to your videos for free. These are not copyrighted, so you can use them as you please. If they have the down arrow on the top right, that simply means that you have not downloaded it yet. To download it, you simply double-click it and it'll add it to your library at no cost. FILMORA does come with some additional content that you can purchase for extra money, but you're not going to see those appear on the screen here. You'll have to select this icon that says More Effects up top. So how can you edit your music once it's been added? Well, once you click it, you may notice it has very similar tool tabs present that you should remember from the previous video. It lacks a few of them, but the two big ones that we still have are Edit, Split, and Delete. Let's open up the Edit tab. Now you may notice there isn't the video and audio icons that we can select up top like we could with the video, but this screen right here that we see is still the same that we would have seen if we open up the audio tab for a video file. And this is where we get to really tinker down and decide how we want to affect our music. You may have noticed that there is a speed icon, which, take a wild guess, affects how fast your music plays. There's volume, which, once again, take a wild guess, affects how loud your music plays. Fade in. The fade in feature is actually really nice. If you look on the right, you may notice that as the further up I go, the higher up it gets, with the maximum being 5 seconds. Fade out works the same way. The higher up I go, eventually stops at 5. All this means is that for a fade in, if I have it up to 5, it means that the music will start out muted, but it will slowly increase in volume, and at the 5-second marker, it'll be at the full volume that you have set it at. If I were to lower this down to 2 seconds, it's pretty close, then it would reach its maximum, it would reach its normal volume at 2 seconds. And fade out is a very similar idea, but the other way around, where 5 seconds away from the end of the track, it'll start to fade out. This can be good if you want to have a certain lead in, lead out effect. It can go very well with intros and outros that are very well organized, and in general can be a fun creative tool to play with. Allow me to give a quick demonstration of the fade in and fade out effects. Here's the music played normally with no effects added. Okay, now let's rewind that and let's add a 3-second fade in. Roughly 3 seconds. Listen to the change. As you heard, there was a delay in the volume presence. It didn't just start out at full volume, it grew in. The fade out feature is exactly the same, but at the end. Now, pitch is a fun tool to mess with. This allows you to change whether or not the music you're listening to or the audio you're hearing
is higher pitched
or lower pitched.
You can even play with this while the music is still playing to see what effects you like. So I'm going to demonstrate this in real time. Now that is a really fun feature, and you can use this to influence music, audio files from your video tracks. It's beautiful, it's fun. Now, you also have this area called the equalizer. Now these presets are nice and they can add some little small adjustments that focus either more on the treble of a soundtrack or more on the bass of a soundtrack. But if you really want to get into the equalizer, then what you want to do is open up the Customize tab and really tinker with it manually. This is more complicated than the scope of this video will go into, but this is how you access your sound mixer. There is another tool here called Denoise that removes background noise. Now, the purpose of this tool is to make it so that way if there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, like if you have a fan playing while you're recording, or if you're playing an audio recording of someone in an interview and there's a lot of audience noises behind them, you can filter out that background noise a little bit and draw the voice of your main focus, that is the music or the speaker, forward. The problem is it does cause your original audio file to be muted a bit. Let me demonstrate. Okay, now let's apply the remove background noise and listen to the difference in volume. Now, you may have noticed that the volume did go down, however, the sharper treble notes did stand out a bit more. So, speech will stand out much more successfully if you have this activated. I choose not to, but that's because there's not a lot of extra sound going on around me. When you do activate this, however, you can choose for the denoise effect to be weaker, mid-strength, or strong. The difference between these is minor, but it basically translates how much of the background noise it's trying to blot out. So while I'm here, I do want to go ahead and very quickly introduce the concept of a track. You may have noticed when I introduced the timeline, I didn't say anything about the individual horizontal lines. Allow me to delete this real quick so we can see this unimpaired. So you may have noticed on the far left here, we have 5 symbols. One with a video symbol, the other that seems to show 2 video symbols, a T, which stands for text, and then 2 music symbols. These represent the different tracks, what kind of content they can hold, and allows you to manipulate the location of them in such a way so you can time them as you want them to appear in your video. Allow me to give a quick example. Let's say I want to add the old video that we used in the media walkthrough. But let's say I also want to add the music you were listening to just earlier. As you can see, we now have 2 different file sources existent within our timeline. Where each one exists on the timeline will also decide at what point in time that file begins. I can either have the music begin at the very start with my video file, such as in this example.
Hi everybody!
Or, if I wished, I could, not what I meant to do, I could grab this sound file and move it forward a bit and have it start at a slightly later time. Now, look at the difference.
Hi everybody!
This gives you very fine-tuned control over when something plays in your video. This can also work for adding certain sound effects. So if you want to add, say, an explosion sound effect or an audience cheering sound effect that only lasts maybe 4 or 5 seconds, you can add that to your music tab, add that file into one of these sound boxes, and then have it play at any particular point in time to grant a certain part of a clip a really fun audio cue. Is that all there is to say about tracks though? Oh, gracious no, good and beautiful viewer. These are not the only tracks that we have access to. you may have noticed in tiny little red print down here, we have add new track. That's exciting. If we click on that, you'll see that our default is set to have text track 1 and music track 2. All this means is that it's saying this is how many text tracks can exist at one point in time, and this is how many music tracks can exist at one point in time. You can only have 2 video tracks. You cannot delete either one of these or add any more, unfortunately. However, we can add 3 text tracks and increase our music tracks to 3 as well. Look what this does to the timeline. All of a sudden, I can now add 3 layers of text if I wish, all having different animations and different effects than each other. I can also add 3 different audio clips and have them work independently from each other. This allows you a great deal of control over customization of your video, especially when it comes to things like sound. There's one last trick I do want to show you in this video before I leave. I will be deleting the music clip from this, and that is the ability to actually separate the audio from a video that you've previously recorded. You may notice that in the video timeline you can see a little quick screenshots of the video as it progresses along up here, but down below we actually can see the sound bar. We can tell when I start to talk based on the ups and downs of these audio bars. If you right click on your video and then go down, there'll be an option called Audio Detach. Look what happens when I select this. Boom. It is no longer here. The audio is no longer here. It has been relocated to one of these sound files. It actually, really interestingly enough, gets its own track. So this means that it will not supersede any music files that you already have added to your video. And it still sounds exactly the same. Listen.
Hi, everybody.
There's no change in audio that we can detect.
Bye, everybody.
However, this ad allows us to do some really fun stuff. By detaching it, I can do things like move it, so the audio is ever so slightly out of tune with the video. Let's watch.
Hi, everybody.
Looks like I'm watching a Japanese film.
Bye, everybody.
So as you can see, this can be a fun little gimmick to give you a unique bit of control over your video. Now there's one last tool I haven't really discussed, and that's because really there's not much to say about it, and that is the split tool. Just like with video, I can go through an audio clip to a certain point, select it, and then click the split icon. This allows me to split the audio file into 2 separate clips, just like we did with video content in the previous episode of this series. You can manipulate this exactly the same way that you can with other things, so I'll not go into much more detail than this. Simply know that you can split them and then manipulate them independently, making one file maybe much louder or quieter than the other. And that's pretty much all there is to know about the Music tab. It's a relatively simple tool, many features very similar to using the video media, and really fun to use once you learn to use the individual tools. So thank you everybody for watching. If you found this helpful, or at least enjoyable, then please let me know in the comments below and leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions about this video or about elements to FILMORA that you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments below and I will respond as quickly as I can. Once again, thank y'all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Toodaloo!